Shade Exposed, Umbra Initiative, two things that seem like they're just a match made in heaven, and that is what we have going on here today. With Shade Exposed, as we all know, we build sort of an aggro when we're out of cover, enemies are looking at us when we're in combat, and once we do a cover to cover, we exchange that aggro over to them, and we get some cool buffs. I'm not going to break down what Shade Exposed does too much, probably do a video breaking down all of the events, but this is not that video. This video is for Umbra Initiative, something that is really fun to use, a gear set that, like I said in the beginning, flows so well with this Shade Exposed event. So let's get straight into this build. So with the 2-piece on Umbra, we get 15% critical hit chance, that 3-piece gives us 30% reload speed, and the 4-piece gives us the 2 talents. Now, with the Umbra gear set, you get the From the Shadows kind of buff with the chest piece. So I do have the chest piece on. This increases our stacks from 50 to 100. And just to give you quick numbers, once we're at max stacks for the first part of the talent, so meaning while we're in cover and we're building stacks for when we're out of cover, we'll be at a total of 120% critical hit damage and 40% RPM. So once we're in cover, we're gaining those stacks. We come out of cover, we use those stacks, and these are the buffs that we get. Now, when we're out of cover, we are also gaining stacks, but for the second part of the talent. So we're going to gain stacks while we're out of cover. We're utilizing that RPM. We're utilizing that critical hit damage. And then once we've kind of taken too much, maybe we need a moment, too much armor is down, we get in cover, and now we use up the stacks we were building when we were out of cover, which give us armor regen. Now, in max stacks with this, we get 40% armor regen over a few seconds when we're sitting in cover. But as you can see here, I'm using the chest piece, and let's get to the other pieces. I'm using the mask. This is a core red attribute, and this is with a critical hit damage attribute and a critical hit damage mod. We are also using the gloves with a weapon damage core and a critical hit damage mod. And then we are using the knee pads with the weapon damage core and a critical hit damage attribute. Now, this build finally gave me an excuse to use the exotic nimble holster. This is a pretty cool holster. Not something I actually ever pictured using until I was coming up with this build. And I thought to myself, what's something that can benefit from cover to cover, right? We're doing this during Shade Exposed. We need some sort of cover to cover benefit. So I end up going with this. This comes with the talent Bob and Weave. Receive repairs of 5% of your total armor for every 1 meter run in cover to cover. And any damage we take while we're doing the cover to cover is healed over 10 seconds. So we can activate our Shade Exposed buff doing our cover to covers, and we now know if we take any damage, we'll be okay. We'll get some of that we'll get that damage healed over time, and we can actually take a moment staying in cover to get that armor and then pop out of cover and just kind of go back and forth with the stacks. It feels chaotic talking about it, but actually playing it doesn't feel chaotic. It's a lot of back and forth, going to cover, out of cover, doing cover to covers. I'm saying cover a lot, but you kind of get the point, and this kind of helps out a lot better. I'm sure there might be something that maybe might buff this a little more, but I finally found a reason to use this. Plus, I needed to bring up this expertise, so this was the perfect opportunity. This comes with the weapon damage core, and the attributes are double crit. Now, to round out everything, pretty much to round out my stats and kind of doing what I can to buff up the build a little more, I ended up going with a Cheska backpack, mostly because my crit chance was pretty low. I needed to bring it up just a little bit, and the 8% on the brand set was actually all I needed to bring myself to that cap of 60%. And that 8% that we get on the brand set of critical hit chance, that helped us get to kind of that max cap of 60% critical hit chance. So I went with the Cheska backpack. As you can see, this is a weapon damage core. I have this rolled to double crit with a critical hit damage mod. The hardest part to this was the talent. I'm always back and forth with the backpack talents. I feel like the chest talents tend to be a bit better than the backpack talents. I don't know, maybe my builds just aren't complex enough to really appreciate the backpack talents like that. but just to bring up the damage a bit more, I went with Unstoppable Force. When we kill an enemy, we get 5% weapon damage. That stacks up to 5 times, so we get an additional 25% increased weapon damage for 15 seconds, or for as long as we're killing enemies and kind of keeping the stacks up. So a little more damage, a little more kind of tweaking on the stats. This book bag was perfect. Now, choosing a primary for this build was a bit difficult, but as you guys are seeing in the gameplay, I ended up just going with the Chameleon. It's been quite a while since I've had a build with the Chameleon. It's actually been a while since I've even used it. So picking it back up kind of reminded me how great it was. It's actually a fantastic weapon. And it's one of those weird ones that are in the middle. It's an AR, but behaves like an SMG. It's very strange, but it works out because its talents are insane, or its talent is insane. So really quick, as you can see here, the core attributes are health and assault rifle damage, and then I have the attribute rolled to damage to targets out of cover. We all know it's kind of a go-to unless you're going to do damage to armor, but yes, damage to targets out of cover, try to go for this. And then we get into the talent. This comes with the talent Adaptive Instincts. Hitting 30 headshots grants 20% critical hit chance and 50% critical hit damage for 45 seconds. Hitting 65 body shots grants 90% weapon damage for 45 seconds. And hitting 20 leg shots grants 150% reload speed for 45 seconds. These buffs refresh when we're out of combat. You gotta be in combat. And as you can imagine, it's an insane talent. The third part, the leg shot part, probably isn't happening too often. So you're probably mostly getting the benefit of those first two parts, the headshots and the body shots. It's probably mostly gonna end up being the body shots anyway. That increased 90% weapon damage is actually fantastic. Of course, the first part is really good. You're getting an additional 20% critical hit chance and 50% crit damage. But at the same time, it doesn't matter. We're at the cap for crit chance, so that 20% doesn't matter. It's mostly that 90% weapon damage. And with how quick this shoots, how powerful it is with Umbra and Shade Expose combined, this actually made the Chameleon really, really shine. It was extremely fun to use. Now for the secondary, I went with the Apartment, mostly because it's just a fun gun to use. I really like this SMG. It's one of my favorites. And because of the talent perfectly measured. The top half of the magazine has 25% increased rate of fire with a minus 30% weapon damage, kind of, I don't, debuff or nerf, I don't know how you would call it. But then the bottom half of the magazine, it flips. We have minus 18% rate of fire, but then we get an increased 38% weapon damage. Now this is pretty cool because Umbra gives us that increased rate of fire already, so this thing shoots absolutely insane in the beginning of the mag. Even though we're not taking it out much, it is a talent that does benefit the build a lot if we need to use it. Now for the specialization, we went with trusty old Gunner. Gunner is usually my go-to just because of that 10% armor on kill. Very self-explanatory. There's not really much big major benefits to it, but the armor on kill for sort of running gun damage focused build is ideal since we're not running a lot of armor cores. And then we can get into the skills. As you guys see in gameplay, I am running your typical running gun skills. I am using the Crusader Shield. The Crusader Shield, I have on there a couple of hosted regeneration mods and a active regeneration mod. This is just to keep my shield for as long as possible. You don't want it to break because then you have a really long cooldown time. And if you're doing a kind of running gun build, you need that shield. Of course, we get the benefits of being in cover and doing everything with shade exposed, but if you have the shield out, it's probably because you're in a moment where you're using your damage buffs, so you really want to have that shield available. And then for the second talent to help out the running gun, of course, is the Defender Drone. With the Defender Drone, I have a duration mod on there, a health mod on there, and an increased 5.9% damage reduction mod, which is already great because I have this at an expertise 20. So I already get 20% damage reduction from the expertise level. And then with that mod, I'm getting a total of 25.9% damage reduction. Now we'll quickly run over to the stats so you can see the stats. I'm sitting at a perfect 60% critical hit chance. It might be a little over, but I have max that we can get 60% critical hit chance, and then we are sitting at 150% critical hit damage. Of course, once we get all the buffs from our gear set, from our weapons and all that, those numbers just increase completely. and this build completely shreds. But let me know what you guys think. What are you using for Shade Expose? Are you running Umbra? Are you doing your typical striker build? Or are we really utilizing LMGs for tipping scales? Comment down below. Give me some fun builds to look at that I can try on my own. I'll leave you all with a little bit more gameplay. But until the next one, see ya.
Transfer initiated.
That bastard can't have gone far yet. Go after her.
Activated charge transfer.